the economic trends in the world right now, we find that there are many that are social in nature, technological in nature, political in nature. Some of these are directly relevant to business and some of them are probably not. So perhaps we could start our discussion by saying that as we move from the pandemic to an endemic where we get used to the way things are now, yeah, what are the trends that we should look at? And if there are any specific business opportunities, which I will then link to my second question. But first of all, let us hear about what are the trends you think that smart businesses should be looking at. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Harvey. Thanks to everybody for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be back with the French Chamber of Commerce. I remember the times when I was the Deputy Chairman of the European Chamber of Commerce. We always used to enjoy the events at the French Chamber, so it's a delight to be back. To look at the question that you've asked, I think it's really very important because now we're in a transition period where we are hoping, as you said, that the very difficult period of the pandemic is coming to an end. Although, unfortunately, if we listen to some of the news from various parts of the world, particularly from Europe, as we approach winter time in Europe, we may be seeing that perhaps it's not quite the end, but we hope that it won't be as impactful as it has been before. But we have, in a strange sort of way, learned to live with those sort of eventualities. But what we're doing now, of course, is trying to think about how it's going to be afterwards, and to be positive and to plan now about how it's going to be afterwards. And in some countries, we're actually moving relatively in a relatively determined way toward that prospect. Before the pandemic, there was a whole lot of discussions about what we call megatrends, global megatrends. And there were, depending on which perspective you come from, there could be just a handful of primary megatrends, or I've seen some analyses by some of the consulting companies drawing on dozens and dozens of megatrends. But I think the trends that they identify are probably just subdivisions of the main megatrends. The main megatrends, of course, are technology and the push of what we've come to know as the fourth industrial revolution. I would also add into that the idea of the future of work and how the working environment has changed or will change. And then, of course, we have the perennial problem of climate change and sustainability issues and management of carbon. But as we just saw in the COP26 event in Glasgow, perhaps that's not as high on the agenda now, just for the moment, as many people would want it to be. And I think that it's both understandable and justifiable, because we really do want to focus on some of the issues of coming out of the pandemic and rebuilding some of those things. Some of the other issues that are of interest in terms of megatrends are urbanization, for example, the question of globalization and how globalization will unfold, whether it will continue to unfold in the way we've seen in the past, or whether it will unfold in a different pattern. But primarily, I think that the issue and the trends that have been highlighted during the pandemic are those related to technology, those related to fourth industrial revolution, those related to a shift to e-commerce, digitalization, a rapid shift of finding alternative ways of doing business in an environment that none of us have ever experienced before, where it's been closed down. Our businesses, our commercial activities have been literally stopped. We've never experienced that before. And that has acted as a catalyst, I think, to push, and I think many other people agree that it's pushed that shift in technology adoption by non-technology companies. It's been pushed much more quickly as a consequence of the lockdown. Consumers also have shifted very quickly to online purchasing and finding ways around the obvious restrictions on movement. And the question now that we're thinking, quite acute is, will that continue? Will that continue after the significant lockdowns end? Which elements of our life will return to what we knew before? That is going out, going shopping, going to eat together, socializing, and which elements of our life will continue to be done online, and particularly in the workplace. Which of us will continue to work from home, and which of us will actually start to think about whether or not we need to be in our traditional workplace. For me, and I think Harvey knows my view on this, I very much enjoy the idea of working from home, and I have found that it's a hugely positive impact on my productivity, and the absence of having to sit in a car commuting every day adds 3 hours to my potential productive activity during the daytime. But of course, at the same time, I also recognize that I miss my students and I miss the face-to-face interaction with that, and so do they. So it isn't just as simple as saying, well, it suits us to work from home, or we save time from working from home, or it improves our productivity from working from home. There is always a social element to the type of work that we do. And of course, if we're in a manufacturing environment, working from home is not an option. So the question that we need to look at and to think about is whether those things which have been pushed, those shifts that we have had to adopt almost by force, whether that will continue into the future, or whether it will start to drift back to the way it was before. Undoubtedly, a lot of it will remain. A lot of the shift to online activity, be it online sales, online purchases, online working, a lot of that, I think, will remain. It will stay, and we will see, and we have seen a significant shift toward that. And I think that we will see that as a very positive contribution to business and the environment. Just to finish, I think in general terms, though, when we think about that push of technology and whether that push of technology has been, the momentum of that has been improved or has been raised by the pandemic, we need to recognize whether or not that has shifted global balance of power. In the past, we have recognized that countries in the developing world, wherever they might be, particularly here in Asia, have been able to take advantage of low wages, low wage costs. But because we have seen a significant push in the adoption of different types of technology, whether it's the online commercialization technologies or whether it's automation, artificial intelligence, and other forms of fourth industrial revolution technology, which I also think has been adopted much more quickly during the pandemic period. I think that will cause a shift back actually to the developed world, and places like Asia will lose their cost advantage in terms of low wages and low cost generally. And I think that that's something that Asian businesses have to acknowledge, that the impact in terms of the adoption of technology and the shifts in terms of costs is likely to have caused a shift in global competitiveness. And so that's something we will have to deal with post-pandemic. Sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Prof. That's a great start to our discussion this afternoon. And it's interesting that you mentioned mega trends. And I think this is true. Business people would have to look not just at their immediate neighborhood, they would have to look at a broader picture. They would have to look at mega trends, yeah? And of course, the mega trends that you have highlighted, like the fourth industrial revolution, the changes in work environment, climate change, urbanization, globalization, all of these are definitely trends that are going to impact on business opportunities, what's available, what's doable. And I think you have mentioned 2 points very tellingly. One is, of course, the shift towards digitalization. And I would like to visit that again. in another question. But I think the point that you just made about the shift and the change in the global balance of power, where we had an advantage in some countries of lower wage costs, that necessarily is not true anymore. And so which means that margins are going to be squeezed in some businesses. And if a business person was to look at the type of returns that are available in the market, we say that if you look at some commodities like gold, there's hardly any return if you had held gold for the last 10 years. Over that same period of 10 years, in bonds, you could have gotten 345%. On the New York Stock Exchange, you could have gotten a return of 351%. And many stocks like Tesla and all have earned thousands and thousands of returns. And not to put too fine a point on it, if I had held Bitcoin for the last 10 years, my returns would be in excess of 2 million. Maybe a bit less today because the price has fallen. But you see, these are the kind of crazy returns that we see in the market. So what do you think is the correlation between business opportunity and returns and economic trends? Maybe if you could just put that in context with us. What should business people be looking for?
I think you're asking the wrong person, because I don't think economists are particularly good at forecasting business returns. If we were, we would all be very much wealthier than we are at the moment. But I think many of these fantastic return profiles that you've been mentioning are things which have been actually very, very difficult to predict from the outset. And in fact, in some instances, they're also very difficult to explain. There doesn't appear to be any particular fundamental reason why some of the products or some of the type of innovations would necessarily have delivered or would necessarily deliver those type of returns or justify those type of returns. So I think there is, in many of those cases, there is what economists call animal. There's a question of animal spirits. There's a question of speculation. There's a question of pushing things which actually don't really have too much by way of fundamental value. Now, I don't give investment advice, so I'm not going to give you any investment advice. But from an economics perspective, I really don't think that there's very much to be gained from trying to pick those sort of winners from an economics perspective, or certainly from an economics policy perspective. What one needs to do from an economics perspective, an economic policy perspective, and a business policy perspective, for example, here in Malaysia or in Southeast Asia, is to try to look at those types of activities which will continue to be important even in a world where we have more automation and more technology. You see, part of the activities of the fourth industrial revolution, and one of the characteristics of the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, which is very different to technological advance in the past, is that many of these technologies are specifically, deliberately designed to replace people. And that's one of the consequences that we acknowledge as part of the fourth industrial revolution, is this hollowing out of all manner of different types of jobs. Now, in the past, we would generally say that technology had a bigger effect on low-wage jobs or low-skilled jobs. But actually, in the fourth industrial revolution, it's not the low-wage and low-skilled jobs that are uniquely affected by these sort of automation processes. Professional types of work are affected: accountants and lawyers and even doctors. And in the pandemic, the medical profession and the testing process. The testing process has been so effective because it has been automated, and that's one of the ways in which the automation affects areas which in the past we would have thought might be protected from technological advances or even enhanced by technological advances. So what this means from an economics perspective is that we may see a lot of jobs going permanently, and these jobs may be in the professional level. Professional level jobs, for example, will not be no longer necessary. We won't need bookkeepers. We won't need accountants, thank God.
Oops.
We won't need auditors, because auditing will be done through blockchain. For example, it will be direct tracking of electronic transactions. So you wouldn't necessarily need auditors to do that. Bookkeeping will all be done electronically, for example. So very many of the things that we are training our students to do, actually in a business school perspective, they won't be the jobs there at all. And what that means for us in terms of what we concentrate on and our focus within business schools, and to keep ourselves both relevant and interesting to our students, is not to teach these type of particular skills related to particular type of functions that we might have done in the past in a business context, but to teach much more creative approach to business, and to a way in which our students can understand megatrends, can understand market trends, can forecast market trends, and then can provide an agile and proactive and creative response. And that means that our work in business schools will change. In my view, our work in business schools will move very much more to being creative and proactive and innovative, rather than to teaching various forms of, particularly at undergraduate level, but definitely at master's level, not teaching the functional aspects of business, but teaching much more creative aspects of business. That will help you to spot the next Bitcoin. I think that will help you to spot the next.
Excellent, Prof. I totally agree with you. In fact, the program that we running with KEDGE Business School, the MBA is exactly an MBA that is designed to answer those kind of questions. It's a forward-looking program. Yes, and yeah, thank you for that. I just want a very quick response on one thing before we invite Prof. Michel. Adam Smith in 1920 said that the markets will always use market forces themselves to find new value. He called it the unseen hand of the market. Do you think there is going to be a play of the unseen hand this time round?
I think, to a first approximation, the market will deliver the best outcome. But markets fail regularly and repeatedly in ways that we understand. So markets will always seek new opportunities. Markets will always seek high return opportunities. But in doing so, markets will often fail to deliver on some of the most important and some of the most pressing issues that we have available. Tomorrow, for example, I'm going to be talking a great deal about inequality and pensions in a conference with the Nobel Prize winner, Joseph Stiglitz. So we know very well that the market might be very good at generating growth. In fact, it's probably the capitalist system as a whole is one of the best ways we've ever seen of generating economic growth. But we're also coming to understand that the social issues are not very well dealt with by the market. And we're coming to understand, of course, also that the environmental issues are not very well dealt with by the market. And so, to answer your question, I think that the market will continue to seek market processes, and businesses and entrepreneurialism and entrepreneurs will continue to seek profitable opportunities. But we, as business researchers and as business professors, we also have to remind our students that, sure, go ahead and seek the profitability, go ahead and seek the market opportunities, but remember you have an environmental and a social and a governance responsibility, as well as creating that high return and that good return for yourself and for all of your stakeholders. So that's a very important core aspect of what we need to teach as in business schools too.
Thank you, Prof, for highlighting that, because yeah, I think the awareness of our responsibility towards the environment and environmental sustainability is just becoming very important. That was really good and insightful. Thank you very much indeed. Now let us move our shift and our discussion to Prof. Michel. Prof, you are a branding expert, and I'm sure branding is about winning customers. Do you see that there are new trends that will emerge post-COVID that businesses might need to address? You might want to get your mic on, Prof, before you begin. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Harvey.
Yeah.
Thank you for this question, and thank you, Geoffrey, for very enlightening answers. I agree, let's say 99% with what you've said. I would just say that at the very end, when you say that markets don't deal very well with social issues and environmental issues, that's an understatement, I would say.
Well, I'm English. You see, the English are known for our understatement. So.
Exactly. Yeah, Harvey, I would start with two things, in fact, before answering your question. I would say, first of all, that I don't teach marketing today as I taught marketing 5 years ago, or even, let's say, 3 years ago. And I'll try to make people understand that, because I think that today marketing is seeing a major change, a revolution, a real revolution. And that a lot of insights, which were, sort of, well, truths, marketing truths, are being challenged.
Yeah.
And that the consequence of that is that most marketers, which have been trained 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, they have an archaic thinking. And I think this is a major issue we'll discuss later today. The second point is that I will go back first to a book which was written in, I think, 1954 by Michael Porter, in which Michael Porter said something which is extraordinary and which I think no one really underlined or understood, when he said that the only two value creation support functions in a business are marketing and innovation. And he said that all the others are costs. That's interesting because it shifts the focus. Of course, innovation, everyone would agree. Who would agree to say that marketing is not a cost? So many companies, so many, well, when you are in a cost-cutting era, what do you cut? You cut marketing, you cut communication costs, you cut so many things which are in fact a direct link with the customer. And here we're back to the customer. So, of course, the customer has changed. And that is also a mega trend. And I fully agree with Geoffrey when he started by speaking of mega trends. I've been pushing the concept of mega trends for the past 10, 15 years, because I think this explains a lot. And it explains a lot in consumer behavior. So, of course, there are major shifts that are happening. The number one is that the pandemic has moved people online, and that they buy online in a much larger proportion than they did before. Let me give you a couple of figures. Traditionally, in Europe and in the US, except the UK, which was ahead of the curve, retail online represented in all categories something like, let's say, 15% of retail sales before the pandemic. In the UK, it was more like 20, 25%. In China, it was 35%.
Wow.
In 2020, China moved to 50%, 50-50. So it means that all of a sudden, China, who is ahead of the world there, I have to say, shows us the way where we are all going now, which is that in the future, retail will be split 50% online, 50% offline. There's no reason why, and all studies show that people want offline. They want the experience. It's exactly what Geoffrey was saying when he says, oh, I love being at home, but I miss my students, okay? I miss the interaction. customers are like that. They want the efficiency of offline. They want the convenience, but they also want the interaction. They want to touch the product. They want to smell the fragrances. They want to go with a friend and visit. So all this shows that our future is omnichannel. And more on that later. Other huge megatrends, health. Health has been on the radar for years now, growing concern with huge impact on the food industry, on the healthcare industry. But the pandemic has boosted that, of course. And when, I'm based in Paris, when I walk the streets of Paris, and when I look at the stores that are closing and those that are opening, I can tell you which ones are closing and which ones are opening. The ones that are closing are fashion stores, too much fashion, okay? The very last being H&M closing their Champs-Élysées flagship store. Interesting, okay?
Yeah.
Now, what's opening? Dental clinics, health clinics, labs, medical labs. And now you can get, in France, where it was a hassle getting an appointment with a dentist, poof, you go to these dental clinics and you get a immediate online appointment. You go there, you get what you need, and you go out and you've got them. And eyewear people also, not just selling glasses, medical care. This is incredible. It means that huge investments are being made in health today. And I think it's not just Paris, it's worldwide. So all this has consequences. And I would say that the first consequence is that customers are not loyal anymore to brands. This has been a megatrend which has been incredibly important over years, growing, and this lack of loyalty has been hidden. Marketers have been focusing for years on, let's focus on our loyal customers because these loyal customers are cheaper to acquire than new customers, and we must pamper them and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. Let me just tell you something, because this is the sort of figure that no one knows. Studies have been made by some of our Australian colleagues for years, across all categories, across all brands, from Coca-Cola, you take the leaders of the world, okay? You take the challengers, you take the niche brands. 75% of their customers buy only once. So where's the loyal customer? So loyal customers, if you start loyal customers are buying twice, okay, which is limited loyalty, I would say, okay, 25% of your customers.
Yeah.
Of course, they bring to you 50% of your revenues, but those one-time customers, they bring the other 50%.
For sure.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to focus on loyal customers? Bah, never. The problem is that most companies today, they do that. They focus on loyal customers and they forget that the real trend is unloyal, and internet is growing unloyalty.
Yeah.
Because the choice is there, because there's so much choice, okay? So the real question for companies is, how can I acquire new customers? Even if I know that by acquiring one, only 20, 25% of them, 30% if I'm good, will become loyal customers.
Right. Right. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Actually, this is incredible. Two points that really come out of this so strongly, that we are going to go into a market trend where 50% of business is done online, 50% of customers are online, and 50% in the traditional way, and then they are not loyal anymore. So if we are a business and we want to improve our presence on online, what kind of recommendations might you make to a company that needs to stand out in these online platforms?
I think, and we're back here to the topic of digitalization. I think the future is omnichannel. But omnichannel doesn't mean I've got two silos, one sitting next to the other. Sort of, I've got retail, okay, and I manage retail the way traditional retail is managed. And then I've got online, and I manage online. The customer doesn't look at that this way. The customer wants to move back and forth from online to offline, okay? Customer journeys now are mixed journeys. And Jack Ma, one of the visionary leaders today is Jack Ma, Alibaba founder. Yeah. In his letter to his shareholders exactly 5 years ago, 2016, he said that online would be just one channel amongst others, and that the future was what he called new retail. And new retail was integration of offline, online, IT, and supply chain. So a lot of people have remember what he said by online plus offline. What I say today is, oh guys, how's your IT? And most companies, their IT is so piling up of generations of systems. And then when you tell them, oh, can you get all the data concerning a single customer, which now shops in let's say even 3 different countries. And people tell you, oh, I'm sorry, no, because in those 3 countries, we have 3 different loyalty systems, 3 different IT systems, and they're not compatible. The customer, number one problem is, I want to be personalized. I want a personal interaction. If you don't know that I went to Bangkok and I bought this in your store in Bangkok, okay, and then I went to Singapore, and come on, it's hopeless. It's hopeless. So these IT issues are huge, and they have to be tackled. The companies have to become customer centric, and it's not just words, because so many companies are saying, "Oh, we are focused on the customer. Oh, we are customer centric." I'm sorry, Geoffrey is British. I'm French, so I can say it's bullshit. Okay, I'm very direct.
Yes,
it's not true. It's not true. The real question is your IT system built on customer centricity? So this is one of the consequences. Second consequence goes back to talents and business schools, whatever they are, talents. Geoffrey was saying, and I fully agree with him, that the consequences of this new trends is that it will touch what is so-called intellectual or service jobs. Let me give you a very precise example from my personal experience. I manage 2 companies, my fragrance family brand and my consulting company. And I was approached by an online accountant company. And I decided to try it for my consulting company. It's very simple. You have an interface and you upload all you have, invoices, supplier invoices, whatever, all the bank statements, you just upload them. And they deliver, they tell you, oh, this is missing, blah, 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 please find it. And they give you the final, all the legal documents you need. Good. When I went to see my old style accountant for the other company, telling him, this exists, I'm fed up of being asked things which I've already given to you. Why don't you use that sort of system? They said they denied it. They told me, oh, you'll go and see this system will not work because everything will go into the account where they can't identify really. It's completely wrong. It's completely wrong.
Yes.
In fact, it works perfectly well. So you're putting accountants, traditional accountants, out of the scope. So really, talents will be changing. Talents will be changing.
Yes.
We need people that are creative. We need, and let me give you another example, which is very important. E-marketing, e-commerce marketing. I can't find people that are good in e-commerce marketing. Or you can find community managers, okay? Because it's maybe more sexy to be on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and so on, and chatting with, and showing nice pictures and videos. Yes. But e-commerce marketing, okay? How do you deal with automations? How do you build a relationship in an e-commerce world? So difficult to find people that are interested by that. You will need them. You will need people like that that will grow the omni-channel experience and the customer journeys.
Yes, Prof. So while you're talking about this multi-channel, may I just interrupt quickly and ask you my third question? What about the role of mobile apps? Since you're talking multi-channel now, mobile apps.
I think mobile apps is just one of the elements. Mobile apps can be the locus of experience because customers want experiences.
Right.
So you can, through the mobile app, be like a hub between the online and the offline. This is where you can focus on experience. But there are other things which are critically important for companies today. How do you reinvent retail? Physical retail. Physical retail is boring. Why are people going online also? It's because going to a store is so poor when it comes to experience. They're all the same, okay? So how do you reinvent that? So there are extraordinary examples. You visit a Gentle Monster store. Gentle Monster is a Korean, and I love taking Asian examples because I think the renewal of retail also comes from Asia.
Right.
Gentle Monster, it's a spectacles, premium spectacle glass brand. Each and every of their stores is different. You think you're entering an art gallery. Oh, do they sell anything? Yeah, they sell, and they sell very well. Okay, but then you have a completely new experience. So that's one thing. You've got pop-up stores. You've got collaborations. Today, in the luxury industry on which I've been working quite a lot of luxury brands have understood that if they go by themselves, they're boring. So they are doing collaborations with outwear brands. Because the younger generation, they love outwear brands. So when they have an LV Supreme collaboration, wow, everyone's doing that now. So all of a sudden, you've got collaboration. So this is, and then you have, and I'll finish with this, a complete different trend, which is, let's get out of social media. Questioning social media. We've all followed the issues around Facebook, okay? The latest mega brand that has decided to quit Facebook, Instagram, and a couple of others, TikTok, and maybe not Pinterest, is Lush, the British beauty brand, Lush. Okay, so that's interesting. Saying this is addiction, and we don't want our customers to be addicted.
Wow.
So this is, will it be a mega trend? I have no idea. Okay, but it really questions things, saying one of the major channels that brands are using today to link up with their customers and with future customers, they are going out. Okay, so all these shows that we are in a transition period, and living a very exciting time.
Right. Amazing. Thank you very much indeed. I think, I have learned two new things, that you can actually integrate the marketing channels that are out there. Integration is required rather than working in the silos that they are. And there's a need for collaboration from people who are delivering a product or service with other supporting services to make it interesting and exciting. May I just invite Prof. Jeff, what do you think about this? Maybe just take 2 minutes, please, for your comments on this integration of marketing channels and the possibility of collaboration as trends in the market. Prof, your mic, Prof.
Okay. I think it reflects something that I was actually just rehearsing and teaching on Saturday. I was teaching Porter's 5 forces model, and I was talking about the power of consumers. Buyer power and consumer power is one of the elements of that, and it's a bit of an old model. But I was wondering, and I was saying to the students, I was wondering to myself as I was discussing it, I was trying to say, is it still relevant today? And it was exactly the type of themes that Michel has been helping us with just now, that I was sort of grappling with to make it to motivate the fact that actually these type of ideas that we had, for example, in Porter, it is important because now we need to think again about the power of consumers, because consumers have learned different ways of shopping, for want of a better term. And I agree that they will look at the ways that they had available before, and it isn't exciting. It isn't exciting to go shopping for various items. For some items it is. For some items it's interesting. For other items it's not. So actually, when you see that 50% of purchases will be online and 50% are not online, actually, it's not counterintuitive, is it? Because there are 50% of the things that we buy that we actually don't like to buy, and then there are 50% of the things that we buy that we do like to buy. And what's really important is to try to understand how we can make consumers like it more, and how we can make it more engaging and more interesting to consumers, because that is one of the key elements of doing a situational analysis in order to build business strategy. It's a core element of doing your business environmental analysis. So I think these are things that, it shows also that business schools are still relevant, because it's exactly this type of conversation that we would have in a business school, and our students will be able to take part in this type of conversation in a business school, and that will help them to a constructive discussion on this, hopefully, and come up with some ideas and some solutions.
Thank you very much indeed, both professors, Prof. Jeff and Prof. Michel. I think we did get a lot of insights today. And if anything at all, the future is for us to take, is carpe diem, and essentially we will have to reinvent. And I was quite intrigued that Prof. Michel mentioned that as early as 1954, Michael Porter had already said that innovation is a revenue driver, marketing is a revenue driver. Wow, that really blew my mind. Yeah. So thank you very much. These were really wonderful insights. I will hand the floor back to Priya, and I believe we have some happy messages. Since you all talked about collaboration, we would like to share a few words about our collaboration between the Malaysia University of Science and Technology and the KEDGE Business School. Thank you very much indeed again, professors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. Thank you very much to our speakers, Prof. Geoffrey and Prof. Michel, for giving us an insightful discussion on the economy. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce a triple accredited MBA program, something that only 1% of the world's business schools possess. The Euro-ASEAN Blended MBA is delivered by KEDGE Business School in France and Malaysia University of Science and Technology, M.U.S.T. If you would like to gain business knowledge, accelerate your career while building an invaluable global network, and to know more about this blended MBA, kindly contact me. I will share my contact details in the chat space here below. Once again, thank you everyone for the participation, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you very much. Have a great
Thank
week
you,
ahead.
Profs.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great session. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Mr. Mat.
Yep.
Yes.